You're listening to Women of Color Roar radio show on KNSJ 89.1 in San Diego and on the World Wide Web. This is Angela D. Joseph. My guest is Carolyn Fowler, and Miss Fowler is the controller of the Democratic Party in California. And thank you for being here with me, Carolyn. I know you have quite the history. I know you took over running the Women's Caucus um, from Christine Pelosi, who had been there for a long time. And so let's just talk about Carolyn Fowler. How did you get into all this party politics?
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. I'm honored to be a guest today, Angela. I certainly have modeled and followed your career and your accomplishments. So I'm really thrilled to have an opportunity to talk about an important issue that you and I discussed the other night, which is Prop 50. But just how I got started, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan.
Oh.
And so go blue. I went to Michigan. And my uncle was a state senator
Mm.
there, Arthur Cartwright. And so since, oh, I think I was about 11 when he first ran. And so we were licking stamps, licking envelopes, campaigning for him. And I just caught the bug back then. And I was in the NAACP's junior uh, department and traveled to all the conventions as a youth in their youth group. And so I've just always been my civics teacher, Mr. Cook. I still remember him vividly. That was my favorite class. Um, I just have always been interested in voting, civics, justice, etc. So it followed me here to California. I became active as I started out elected as a county Democratic in the LA County Democratic Party. So I became a delegate, and I was president of a club, Dem Club, New Frontier Democratic Club, and it just every step of the way, I got more and more interested in civic engagement. I was from the County Democratic Party. I had an opportunity to serve on the Community Voter Outreach Committee that the county has, head up by Dean Logan, the registrar. And I was on the initial committee for voting solutions for a new voting system. So I also was a founding member uh, of several organizations for the right to vote. So it's just been in my blood ever since, to be quite honest. And so, as chair of the Women's Caucus, Christine, I was on there doing the boot camps for women to be elected. Because I
Mm.
felt very passionate there weren't enough women, and certainly not enough women of color, being elected within the state. And so that gave me an opportunity to meet a lot of the legislators, particularly the women legislators, present them to the Women's Caucus. I recently, as I shared with you, was able to have a panel. We talked about some of the marvelous women right there in San Diego, and pretty much all of them have been on a panel with the Women's Caucus. And you guys are certainly the model for how do we uplift women, period, in our state. So the work continues. And sometimes it's not as fun as it should be, but we have a very important single ballot measure coming up here in California, and I hope to talk more about that.
Oh, we're going to definitely talk about that. Uh, the ballots have dropped for Prop 50, and people still don't know what it is.
Well,
And so I definitely wanted you to come on because I wanted to talk about what it is, but why it's important for, particularly for the Black community. Why should the Black community vote on this bill? Um, and because a lot of people don't understand it, don't understand why they should support it. They think, oh, is it Gavin's bill? So there's some misunderstandings there. So could you kind of clear that up?
Yes, I'd be happy to. First of all, I think it's important to talk about what it is, what it's not,
Mhm.
and what it means to the Black community, as you so aptly said, because that's the most important part. First of all, this is about more than maps. I know a lot of people, unfortunately, don't even know there's an election coming. Now, the sample ballot, as you said, has dropped. So that's their first clue. I guess there is going to be an election because, fortunately, in California, and under the leadership of our Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber, everyone that's registered to vote will get a ballot.
Yes, yes.
The key is getting them to use it, which they really don't even have to leave their house, but to vote and get that ballot in. That's our goal. But when I say it's about more than maps, it's really about protecting the democratic voting rights. We just can't sit back while the MAGA Republicans silence millions of voters before they even make it to the ballot box. This gerrymandering has been going on now. Quite frankly, I know we're looking at Texas, but it's happened in Florida, it's happened in Ohio, it's happened in North Carolina, and so California is just not going to stand for it just because the president picks up the phone and says, "Get me some more votes." That's not going to how we're going to work it. But what we have done in California, which a lot of states have not, we do have a redistricting commission, and the people voted for that. And Prop 50 does not change that. I think that's the number one thing I want to make sure people understand. Uh, the proposition does retain the independent voting commission. It does maintain the integrity of the rules of redistricting. So, in other words, when we redid the maps for, and it's for the congressional seats only, this is a temporary move for the congressional seats only. It retains all of the parameters that the commission has set out. So the size of the district, the number of people, in the district geography, the contiguousness of the districts. We did not do what Texas and some of the other states did that went outside the guidelines that were set up. And so it's important that people understand that. There's a misconception that we're trying to change and throw out what the redistricting commission stated. That is absolutely not true. The other thing is, which kind of says what it's not, the other thing is it really levels the playing field for 2026. As I said, we commit to the fair redistricting rules. It gives voters the power to approve a temporary map. It's fair and proportional, and it's a temporary emergency that we're going to explore until 2030, as long as this administration is in. Now, why is it important to the Black community?
Okay, hang on one second. I just want to just explain something to some people who may not understand.
Okay,
So, every 10 years we have the census, right?
that is
And
correct.
then and based on the census, they they decide like where the congressional districts are based on the census. And there's a committee, because I remember going through the process, and this committee meets and determines what this map is going to be. And that's how many congressional seats is based on this geography, and it's based on the census. So now, because Texas is what's called gerrymandering, which means you go around and you just carve out to make it more of a Republican based map. There, uh, because that's happened to give five more seats in Texas. In response, California and this proposition is saying is asking voters to vote on giving California this temporary position to carve out so that we have five additional Democratic seats. And you're saying this would be a temporary situation until the next census.
2030, yes, the
Till
next
okay.
census.
So that's what is, but that's how it is set up to work. And this is what the reason why
Right,
it
but
is.
I also want to
Okay,
say
go
that
ahead.
normally during the census in the redistricting, it is also the legislative seats as well.
Mhm.
But for this particular incident, we're only looking at the congressional seats. We're not making any changes to the legislative seats. And I
Right.
think another important piece is um, it is a process that the citizens apply for and are ultimately selected. And it's very nonpartisan, to be quite honest. And not only are they looking at the maps, they hold hearings throughout the state. So when the maps are presented, initially the public gets to help kind of draw the maps and say, here's what's going on, here are the resources that are in our community. We want to retain these resources for us. So it is very transparent and open. And that's what we do still with Prop 50 want to retain.
Okay. So now the black community. So why should the black community be
Okay.
involved in this election?
Because if you understand the $90 billion cuts that the Republicans are proposing with that current budget, uh, the Black community will suffer the most in terms of health, in terms of housing, and in terms of jobs. The job piece they talk about on TV, how now the Black woman unemployment rate is the highest it's ever been, period. And that is because many of the jobs they cut right there in the government were public facing jobs. And as you know, many of us that have been around a while, we were always told, get a good government job
Mhm.
because you'll have your
Got
benefits,
benefits.
you'll have everything you need. Well, that was true until the last 8 months. And so we're the first to get hit, African Americans, with those cuts. Um, that's the job piece. Uh, and think about the future work for our children. Then, when we talk about the housing piece, those cuts are impacting all the public housing funding. And many of us, the African Americans, are the greatest number, and particularly a lot of seniors, in the homeless situation for what numerous reasons, but particularly we are the ones that are getting Section 8 housing or getting the help for housing. They're cutting most of that. So the homelessness rate for us can increase. And then when we talk about health care, they're talking about cutting the health care. And I just got an email today. I happen to work for Los Angeles Unified School District, where they're also cutting a lot of the funding for mental health. Mental health is the number one crisis that even the students point out
Mhm.
within the school system, K through 12. And so that funding being cut, they're cutting all the psychologists and so forth. It will impact us. So on healthcare, think about the seniors. When we talk about, yeah, I think they're saying 1.7 million Californians have Medicaid. So, and we are a large portion of that as the Black community. So, if we do not pass yes on Prop 50, what is going on now is going to be even worse. And so, I think it's important that the Black community understand just even those three issues of jobs, housing, and healthcare, how detrimental it will be. And women have the most, Black women have the most difficult time getting the services we need in the first place. Fortunately, I did see recently that the governor did sign a bill on premenopause, premenopause and HRT. So that will be very helpful, particularly to Black women. So I think to stay on track, it is imperative that the Black community understand Prop 50, like I said, what it is, what it's not, but more importantly, how we will have further be disadvantaged if all these things pass.
Well, what's going to happen if the Republicans, for example, get the additional votes and keep a majority in Congress? that means that they can continue down the path.
That is correct.
So
Continue
that
to
means more
disenfranchise
cuts
us.
to
Everything.
funding for HBCUs, more cuts to
Exactly.
people who have food insecurity programs,
That is
more cuts
correct.
to senior programs, more cuts to children's cancer program. All
Yeah,
of these cuts,
research, right.
research programs,
Mhm.
and that means that benefits for the people at the
Social Security.
top 1%.
Think about the number of people on Social Security.
Mm.
They feel it's a benefit, which we all know the truth. We paid into Social
Paid
Security.
into it.
That's our money. It's not the government's money.
No.
So just the fact that they don't care. They just don't care, and we have to start getting it. I think people are starting to get it. I will say on the positive, the last few special elections, we have been successful. Even as recently as this past Tuesday in Arizona. So I think people are starting to understand the damage that's being done to education for our children, how hospitals closing, particularly in rural areas, they've started closing already. Uh, for you to be able to, and telehealth is not going to help if there's no people there to answer the phone. So,
Well, also, what about nursing homes?
yeah,
It's like
that's
I mean, how are you going to work and you have no childcare? You can't
thank
take
you.
care of your parents.
Exactly. So
You've been cut from your job, so how are you going to put food on the table?
it'll be devastating. I'm just telling you, this budget that they're proposing and some of the things they've done already, withholding resources to schools, uh, to programs for children, special ed. It's unbelievable. And I think until you're actually in the situation, sometimes people aren't aware. And people are fighting for their lives every day. They're trying to make their jobs, this whole immigration issue, terrorizing our children with this ICE thing. People afraid to come to work. People afraid that it's impacting the agricultural industry. Um, it's increasing the prices on fuel and food. So we've got to stop. California has decided we're not taking it. So as they say, don't poke the bear. Because we're not having it.
Well, it's very interesting to see California, which we are the ones that pay the most into the federal government.
That is correct. We are the nation's fourth economy, and so it probably would take I don't know how many states to equal uh, the revenue of California, uh, and for one or two states to try to turn that around, or three states actually, like they're in charge of something. No, the buck stops here. We're going to fight it. We're going to win Prop 50. We just have to tell our neighbors, tell our coworkers, and that's what we're doing. We're hitting the doors. We're making phone calls. We're knocking doors. We're letting people know, and we want people to ask, "What is Prop 50? Why Prop 50?" But don't believe the lies that we're doing something untoward. We are not. We are following all the guidelines for redistricting, unlike some of the other states.
Well, Carol, let me just ask you this because it's always, falls back on Black women. Yeah, it's always, we're organizing, we're the ones doing, the work. And yet, when it comes down to the distribution of the funds, then there's always seems to be a question mark. And so, and as somebody who, works in media, and I'm in nonprofit media, but still it requires funding. I mean, somebody has to pay the bills. So, how do we get some of the funding that's being donated even for Prop 50 uh, to come into paying for Black consultants, Black media? How do we get some of the funding to help us get the word out?
Well, that's one of the reasons, and thank you again for attending the coalition meeting the other night. I think we're going to have to build the coalition that we're trying to build to be much more vocal and realistic about who's, as you say, who's really doing the work here, who's really turning out the voters. As you know, 92% of Black women voted in the last election. 80% of African American men voted for Kamala Harris. Where was everybody else? And particularly white women, white men, and Latino men, surprisingly, when the immigration piece and how they're treating their people and children is fascinating to me that they cannot see or seem to be blindsided about who's really helping in your interest. Um, so the purpose of that coalition is to, for future, the money that was donated, the governor is running this uh, proposition. He has his consultants, etc. We have no say on how they decide to implement or whatever. There has been quite a bit of TV, but I think this is where the nuance comes. It's not only the Black community, when you're trying to reach the Latino community, when you're trying to reach the LGBTQ community, the Asian community, we it's a different message on the ground. And I think we have to start realizing that if you're not on the ground, just TV is not going to get it. Uh, California is a big radio state,
Ye-
as you know.
Oh, yes. Oh,
And so, uh, if we're not talking to our radio people, and we're in our cars because of traffic, and if we're not capturing those people, those drivers, and I know what, even though I don't always have, I have short commutes. First thing I do is turn on the radio when I get in the car because I want to hear what's happening, what's going on. Uh, so I think we have to start positioning with those that are raising the money. These are areas that they're going to need to invest in if they want our help.
and also, we're living in an age where everybody is like listening to podcasts. And so more people, listen to my show on the internet. So they and I, people I don't even realize, I run into them and they go, "Oh yeah, I listen to your podcast," because they, and so they hear it, on the internet and Instagram or YouTube or so, and then it goes viral and people share it, and so that's the age we live in now,
Yes,
and so and also it's everybody has it on their phone, and so we're the ones that are the griots of the day. And like I said, people don't understand something like this. And so, I can't talk one on one to everybody, but I can talk to, 100,000 people via this radio show.
yes, and
So,
it's important because, to your point, you can't reach everybody just one on one. It's a good way to start it because we've always been good at that as the African American community because that's historically how we've had to, whether it was through our churches,
mhm, mhm,
etc. On Sundays, they had two
right.
meetings. You had
But see,
church.
but from the pulpit, understand that you have, it's like mass media, right?
Yes,
At the
exactly.
Pope, so you're reaching, you have three services, right? And you
Yeah.
reach, and then so
Well, and now those services, thanks to COVID, are online. See,
mhm,
and so
right.
and
Mhm,
so and then we have our Black radio shows,
mhm.
and we also have uh, the online community. I think people are leaning more towards radio and podcasts actually because they find it a little more informative. Social media has gotten so much. misinformation because of the interference from other countries with
Yes,
bots and things
yes,
like that. So
true,
people don't know what to believe, and AI is contributing
true.
uh,
But
a
I
lot
think
of it
that's
too.
why trusted messengers.
Yes,
And
trusted
now,
messengers.
everybody that got kicked off of mainstream media is now, on Substack.
Yes,
So, you can find all your favorite former, TV pundits now
on there. Yes,
on there.
but you know what, too? Just think about how many people call you. I know how many texts and emails and calls I get when it's time to vote. Think about how many people call you and say, "Hey, how am I supposed to vote on this?"
How much exactly?
so, so we
Yes,
do have a pretty
yes,
good
people
network.
actually, and I, and and actually it's so funny because I have a friend of mine and she actually puts her how she votes up on Facebook, and so I put mine up too. It's like, okay, here's how I vote, you know,
Yep,
and because people want to know,
yep,
and there are things that, for example, she's very much into environmental things, and so I rely on her, for those issues because I know she's researches those issues,
exactly.
you know.
And it's becoming more and more to your point, trusted messengers. I know as a DNC member, we talk about that all the time. Is people will follow people they trust, and
Yes.
that's why we in the party constantly are having organizers year round. So you have to be in the community and share what's in their best interest, um, and find out what they think is in their best interest, which is even more important. Because when you follow the people, I think you're on the right track. And that's what we try to do.
So Carolyn, I'm really glad that I got a chance to talk to you today. And just so you now know that I'm here and I'm committed to doing the show and to now broadcasting it and making it bigger, the platform bigger, so that I can reach even more people. Because I feel that with mainstream media failing us as badly as they are, that we need more people who are going to let truth be told.
You are absolutely correct. And let me just say, I thank you for what you're doing. And as I try to tell people, we got that motto from our last convention: do something.
Do something.
Do something.
Yes,
If
that's the
everybody did something, we'll be much further ahead.
yes. So Carolyn Ballard, what would you like the audience to know before I let you go? We've talked about Prop 50. I know that Dr. Weber says that in California that you can register to vote same day. I didn't even know that.
Yes, you can. You can register to vote same day. And particularly if you have moved, it is important that you register. You can re-register online, but
Mhm.
should that not be convenient, you can go to the nearest polling location and re-register with your current address. It is also important. I want to send a message out, particularly to those in the LA County area that were impacted by the fires.
Mhm.
We are watching that. I was with Registrar Dean Logan yesterday as well. He joined us. They are watching that very closely. We're concerned that the post office is, following through with getting people their mail, but we want the people that were
Mhm.
impacted by the fire to make sure that they can register to vote. I know October 9th, they're having a town hall in the Pasadena area. So and specifically on this subject of voting and registering to vote. So people can probably go online and find that as well. But the main thing is when you get your ballots are going to drop approximately starting October 6th that week. Please don't hesitate. Fill it out, sign it, because you got to make sure you sign it or it won't count. And please support Prop 50. It is the right thing to do for California. Yes on 50. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today, Carolyn Fowler, controller of the California State Party. You're listening to KNSJ 89.1 FM in San Diego. I'm Angela D. Joseph, and you are listening to Women of Color Roar radio show. And this is the show that talks about people, politics, and policy. And today, a special guest, Brisa Larson, and I'm going to read her bio because it's nice and it is short because she followed directions. Brisa Larson, born and raised in San Diego, Brisa completed an associate's degree in Black Studies from San Diego Community College District and a bachelor's degree in political science from Point Loma Nazarene University. She is the co-founder and director of the San Diego Black Workers Center, an organization created to build an equitable economy for Black workers across the diaspora and to advance the Black worker justice movement. In addition to her role as the director of the San Diego Black Worker Center, she currently serves as board member for the San Diego Workforce Partnership, an organization empowering job seekers to meet the current and future workforce needs of employers in San Diego. Separately from her career in the social justice field, she's an artist, as a songwriter, and the lead singer of San Diego's award-winning band, The Lyrical Groove, and more recently launched her creative consulting business, specializing in culturally responsive, strategic, and intentional planning for business, organizations, and creatives across sectors. Welcome to the show, Brisa.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel so honored to be in this space with you. I just love the work that you do in San Diego. So I'm really happy to be here.
Well, thank you. And I have been a fan of yours for a while. So I follow you on social media and I've actually seen one of your performances and this before I ever knew you. And I know,
Oh,
yes. And we're not supposed to say this for some reason. It's not PC, but I was like, she's so beautiful. She's so pretty.
oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
The lights help.
Yes. Well, but the aura, it's the aura. But
Thank you. I received
also
that.
since that time I've gotten a chance to hear you speak and became aware of the powerful activists. And today I put this shirt on. I'm like, with you see the
Yes,
on my
it's
shirt
perfect.
today. So, and the thing is, women traditionally and women from the African diaspora, we have been at the forefront of so many battles. And here we are again. But today I want to start
Yeah.
off by just kind of getting to know you a little bit. So let's just start off with what made you even want to go into this field of working with the workforce?
Absolutely. Well, I think everyone has like a moment in time where they um are engaged and activated. And mine actually happened to be in 2012 when Trayvon Martin was murdered. I was very young, and I my son at the time was 2,
Mm.
and he was sitting on the floor playing blocks. And it was the first time that Trayvon Martin's mother had spoken on national TV and publicly. And it was in that moment that I realized that the only difference between her and I was the grace of God.
Mm.
That I had been programmed over the years to believe that if you make a certain amount of money, or if you have a certain level of education, or if you live in a certain neighborhood, that maybe these things couldn't happen to you. And it was in that moment that I realized it didn't matter where I lived, what I did, what degrees I had, like the color was Black and we were all under attack. And that's what made me want to get involved, is when I realized there was nothing I could do to actually protect my child at the time, but children now. And it inspired me to want to learn this work and know this work at a deeper level than just seeing what was happening, but really becoming a part of solutions and movements and connection and community in a way that I had not been engaged before. And that's where my collective responsibility and collective solidarity began to grow. And that's what ultimately led me to getting into this work. I've been in the social justice field for a little over 13 years now. And I started off in union organizing, specifically working with home care providers and working statewide to advance their inequities and their disparities, which opened up my eyes to the larger issues happening in labor. I then transitioned into civic engagement work, doing voter registration, voter education, really pushing for progressive policies locally and statewide, and having some significant wins from the campaigns that we carried, doing huge voter engagement programs. I mean, we'd have 250 people knocking on doors and doing phone calls for 3 months prior to election. And we saw a huge impact in turning out underserved, underrepresented voters. And then that work led me to being in a position to really start to advocate more for the Black community and being a Black voice in predominantly white spaces, and was given the opportunity to lead, co-create, found, and lead this San Diego Black Worker Center, which is part of a national network. There's the National Black Worker Center, and there's about 12 plus Black worker centers across the United States. And at the time, San Diego came in as number 11. And it was an honor to bring such an intentional space to San Diego, which is constantly overlooked. Because, you know, here in San Diego, Black folks are less than 6% of the population. So when we're talking about Black justice, Black worker justice, Black movements, they think of LA, they think of the Bay, they go to the East Coast, they go to the South, and San Diego's not part of the discussion. And so it was really special to bring something for that 6%, to let them know that, like, we see them, we hear you, we know that there's a need for a space for us, a voice for us. And it's been such an honor, to say the least, to be in predominantly white spaces, or to be in historical spaces of anti-Blackness, and be at the table, literally, physically, and say, I don't see Black people on the agenda, and I don't see our issues a part of this, campaign. I don't see us talking about racism, systemic racism. I don't see us talking about anti-Blackness. And so it's been dope to transition from just being in this bubble of, like, representing injustices from all communities to really being able to advocate to an experience that has directly impacted me my entire life.
Well, that was a lot. So, but but I want to kind of parse some of it out. One of the things that is top of mind when you talk about what's going on with the workforce is, the statistic that came out in the spring, that it was 300,000 Black women had lost their jobs, which, the people keep using that number. I'm like, well, by now, it's probably a lot more. And specifically when it comes to the work that you do with Black workers, tell me a little bit about specific things that make it different, with Black people in the workforce, and specifically Black women.
Yeah. So at the San Diego Black Worker Center, one of the things that we really focus on is building a home for Black people that is rooted in Black power. Our mission is to build a more equitable economy for Black workers across the diaspora, and really advance the Black worker justice movement, which is rooted in addressing anti-Blackness, discrimination, and inequities within the labor force. We do this through organizing people power, and really politicizing, educating, and making sure our members and Black workers are equipped with the knowledge as a tool for resistance and as a tool for advocacy. And then we also push for policy advocacy to improve the actual job quality and job environments that Black workers find themselves in. In particular, with Black women, obviously, we know that there's always been a wage gap between women and men. But the reason why the Black Worker Center and Black worker centers across the nation are so crucial to this work is because we address the statistics that aren't mentioned. So nationally, people will say, well, for every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 75 cents. And that's true. But what they don't say is that for every 75 cents a white woman makes, a Black woman makes 68 cents, and a Latina woman makes 38 cents. And so that's why worker centers that have this focus on inequities and on equality, or on not equality, but on equity, shows how important it is to be honest about who it's most impacting so that the advocacy could start from the root. And so we try to, one, address the wage gap that Black women face. And something that the San Diego Black Worker Center has done specifically for Black women was we created a maternity rights campaign where we are branding maternity rights as a worker rights issue. When you hear maternity rights, you automatically assume healthcare, which is accurate. But there are a lot of other buckets that could be working together to address the disparities that Black women and Black birth givers face within the Black maternal health field. So we know that Black mothers are dying at a higher rate than any other ethnic group in the fourth trimester, which is after they've given birth. And so at the San Diego Black Worker Center, what we did was we actually created a report that shows the lack of quality paid maternity leave plans by employer and how that actually impacts Black mothers and birth givers in the fourth trimester. So we've been exposing the gaps in the maternity leave access. The report that we created reveals how the lack of quality paid maternity leave combined with the confusion around the California paid family leave and the disability insurance programs and how unclear the employer and employee leave agreements are, how that actually deeply impacts the worker experience and harms the physical health of both, not only the parent, the birth giver, but also the child. And it contributes to the broader systemic issues within Black maternal health.
You're listening to Women of Color Roar radio show on KNSJ FM in San Diego. This is Angela DeJoseph, and my guest today is Brisa Johnson. And we are having this conversation that is going to be wide-ranging, but right now we're talking about Black workers and what she is doing to help Black workers. So we're talking about Black women and the maternal care issue. We talked about the disparities in terms of white men, white women, and also where Black women fall in that spectrum. But in terms of the workforce, it also, a lot of Black women are in administrative roles in the federal government and were the first to be laid off in these cuts that happened in the federal government. So how can Black women be prepared so that we can have more job security, if that's even possible?
Yeah, so I think in terms of Black women being prepared in terms of job security, I think this is when community is so crucial because we are coming into a time where we have always known that the system does not work for us. It has always worked against us. It is rooted in systemic racism. But now we're coming to a season where people are no longer able to rely on these systems. They're no able to rely on the Supreme Court upholding the law. We're no longer able to rely on the Constitution upholding the law. We're no longer able to rely on the education system, the healthcare system, and now we're losing vital programs from these systems like SNAP, access to birth control. And so this is a sign, if anything, that people need to start building real community. So this is a time now more than ever where we really need to be building community and we need to be working inside to create the systems and the resources that we need outside of those systems that have been currently given to us that are rooted in anti-Blackness. And so one way that Black communities and Black women in particular can really start to protect themselves is by identifying how we combine our resources, our knowledge, our skill set to develop our own places of business, our own food supplies, our own clinics, right? Taking all of our knowledge, our best of our best, our degrees, our experience, our strengths, and pulling them together to create our own infrastructure, neighborhood by neighborhood, utilizing our coffee shops again, utilizing our libraries again, utilizing our churches again, and really getting out of this idea that somebody is going to come and fix it, or that the law in some way won't allow it to continue this way, and really being mindful that we are the saviors that we're looking for. We are the answers that we're looking for. And I think Black women in particular are also going to have to, we're as a community, need to find allyship in the form of accomplices, right? We don't just need people who actually believe that Black Lives Matter. We need people across the table who live it and hold it accountable and hold the line, and really finding those safe spaces with other folks who are also dealing with the same oppressor to come together and build those infrastructures.
Well, one thing that, I was at a conference recently, and they were talking about the idea that has been created that has been used well to divide us. And one is to set us up as competitors with each other. And so when you're talking about us building community, one of the things, with Black women is to be mutually supportive and to share information and not feel we have to hold on to information. I've been with in other communities where they share with everyone the information as opposed to holding it here. And so us being able to learn the strength in us being able to share information with each other, whether it's about jobs or resources, but being able to know that we have to join together for this strength. And I think that's speaks to what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think what we've realized is that we have been programmed into individualism. And because we have been given crumbs to a much larger pie, we really try to hold on to what resources we had out of survival. And one thing that we have to do is stop thinking that these things are good versus bad. And what we have to realize is that these things aren't good versus bad, but it's a misinformed and programming, right? And so we also have to stop calling people out and figure out ways to call people in, because they really have just been programmed to think that individualism is a pathway to success, and that in their survival mode, they have to hold on to the knowledge, the resources that they have. And so when we can kind of decolonize and deprogram the mind, we can really start to view collective solidarity as a revolution for duty. Yes. No, baby, you have to wait. Okay. Here,
Do you want to take a few minutes and get
here, here you go. There you
okay?
go. Okay. He's good.
He's good.
Um,
Okay. Okay. Well,
you know,
let me ask you
oh,
this. Okay, let's talk because after we've been through being on the forefront of these elections and everything and doing all this work, and now in California we've got this coming up, this vote for Prop 50, and I know myself included have felt a little bit like, what, I've been doing the work. Y'all should have just done what I told you to do before. But it's like now you want me to do some more, come back again and do more work. But in terms of us being able to get things done and not have continued the erosion of our civil rights and voting rights and all the things that and also the things we depend on, like the healthcare and the SNAP benefits and so on, that being a participant in the voting situation that's going on in California is important for Black voters. How's your feeling about that?
oh yeah, as someone who worked in voting, I think voting is extremely important, extremely crucial. It's also just one piece of the advocacy that is needed. It is one tactic to a much larger strategy and goal. And so when we put an emphasis on voting, we know, and we need others to know, that voting is just step one. And so what happens is our community has been bought in to think that all we have to do sometimes is vote. And then they go and vote. They don't see the change that they want. And they say, like, well, none of this is works. And all of it's a sham. And and then they don't believe in the system, or they start to take on some of the colonizers' language. If voting was not important, they wouldn't try so hard to stop us from doing it. There would be no voter suppression. There would be no attempts to lie and create propaganda around voter fraud. They wouldn't be putting all these new restrictions on voting, saying that you need to bring your ID and you need to bring a birth certificate and you need to prove all these things. All of that is purposeful because they know how important voting really is. And if all of us as a collective really turned out in large numbers to vote on even just progressive policies, let's say we don't even focus on the candidates, we just focus on the policies, there would be such a huge shift in our nation, especially because what we're seeing now in the last few years is the increase of communities of color where we are no longer the minorities. And then the next few years, those people are turning 18, which means for the first time in American history, we're going to have more people of color voting than white people for the first time ever. And that's going to be a huge shift in who's in office, the policies that are in place. And so I need people to always pay attention to the defense. If they are continuously creating tactics to stop us from doing it, ask why. And the why shows us why voting is important and why people need to get involved. But you can't stop at voting. Voting can't be the only answer. Think of this as like a puzzle. And the puzzle doesn't become whole without multiple pieces. Voting is just one piece of that puzzle. And so we have to see value in voting, but then we have to also ask ourselves after November 4th, after Election Day, now what do we do? Now what step 2? Now what step 3? And just keep finding ways every day to be a part of something that is bigger than us, but has the most impact on us. And again, why collective solidarity is so important, because it's a revolutionary duty. And that's what Assata Shakur teached heavenly, is that our collective solidarity is not only rooted in revolution, but it is rooted in love and interconnection to global liberations. And if we can really find time to sit down and talk about more of what we have in common with others than we do our differences, then we will realize that we are literally fighting for the same things, and that the oppressor is literally the same person in the exact same system. And we say this in a cliche that, like, I'm not free until everyone's free. But it is so true. And when you feel it deep down in your core, when you finally realize that what you allow to happen to others is ultimately what's going to happen to you, you then start fighting for people differently, because it's literally the same blueprint every single time from the oppressor. They take the community that they are targeting and they dehumanize them. And once they put language to dehumanize them, they then use that dehumanization to ultimately justify the mistreatment of that group of people. We see it with Black people when they call us criminals and thugs. We're seeing it now with the undocumented individuals, and when they're calling them illegal aliens, right? Another form of dehumanization. And we see it in Gaza with Palestinians when they call them terrorists. All of that is a form of dehumanization to justify the mistreatment. And when we start to realize that the colonizer and the systems are using the same tactics, the same hurtful rhetoric for every single underrepresented group of people, that's when we will have real power. That's when we will have collective solidarity, collective responsibility, and the revolution will begin.
Okay, amen on that. Well, you talked about okay, what's happening with ICE, for example, and it was targeted obviously at the Latino immigrants, and then people were like, well, that's not my fight. And then we saw what happened in Chicago, which was in a Black community, in a Black, apartment building with Black people, Black, children. So clearly, the threat is not limited. But
Mm-mm.
but in terms of the tactics, okay, for example, okay, we have a march coming up, the No Kings, it's the second one. And when this airs, it will be probably tomorrow, and then it'll be already have happened. So, but for example, for Black people, it's like we already marched, okay? We've done Selma, we've marched, we were, doing marches, and now you want us to come and march again. Um, is that something we should be participating in at this point? Yes, all of these things that are happening right now in the federal government are affecting us, but should we be joining into this national protest?
Yes, absolutely. And maybe it's not a national protest, but everybody needs to be doing something towards it. This idea of resting because we've been fighting is another lie. It's another lie because systemic racism still exists and is going to exist. Anti-Blackness is extremely real. And for us to be understand oppression at the level that we do and still not be a collective voice in other movements is totally misinformed and unaligned with the same revolutionary leaders that we look to. We love the Malcolm X and the James Baldwins and the Fannie Lou's and the Assata Shakurs and the Angela Davis. We love them all. And yet we are not even actually following their leads because they constantly reached across the table. They fought against they protested and fought against the Vietnam War. They stood with Palestine in the 70s. They worked with workers across the field. They partnered with Cesar Chavez. They partnered with, you know what I mean? Like we literally have watched them stand up for injustices across the table. And yet somehow we feel in 2025 that these same people that we idolized have it wrong when we say that it's our time to rest. Now, don't get me wrong. Two things can be true at the same time. We can acknowledge that we're exhausted. We can acknowledge that we constantly show up on the right side of history, but that's what it means to be a part of movements and revolutions is that they are revolving. Movements are moving. It is a constant ongoing process that has no end date. It is one battle and one fight after another. And so where I say maybe it's not a protest, maybe you don't go to this protest because you're using your energy elsewhere, but the energy still needs to be used for movement work. I, for example, don't, I've been in social justice 13 years, right? So I don't go to every national protest because I feel like the No Kings protests and things that are like much more globalized, nationalized, things that are, encouraged from all sides of the spectrum are going to get a lot of turnout, right? But what I can be doing at the No Kings protest instead of marching is sitting out there engaging people, telling them about the Black Worker Center and getting them involved in movement work so that after that protest day, they're now connected to an organization that is doing the work ongoing that they are currently protesting for. We have to be plugging people in because if we're just showing up ultimately to a protest and then doing nothing after, that's just a performance. That's just mobilization. You have mobilized people to come out, make noise, show their disdain, identify that other people share that same feeling, and then they go home. That's not organizing. That's not movement building. That is just, I came, I saw, I may have left early to avoid traffic. And I just want to say that, like, I am really passionate. And sometimes the things I say may not be rooted in loving words, but I don't say them without love being at the bottom of it. I only say it because I love. I love this community. I love my people. I love San Diego. I love Black people. And I'm so honored to do this work. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, our guest has been Brisa Johnson, and she has shared quite a bit with us. And thank you for being here today. And we look forward to talking to you again soon.